Hello, welcome to Voice on Record with me, Sean Williams. You're listening to Resonance 104.4 FM, resonancefm.com. Today's programme is the second of the two programmes that I'm doing about J.R.R. Tolkien, and this is featuring Tolkien reading from Lord of the Rings. It's mostly The Two Towers and Return of the King, although at the very end there's a little recap from the Fellowship of the Ring, which was included on the record just by the wishes of the editor. There's a particular reason for that. We'll come to that later on. And just by way of reference as well, just to sort of increase the resonance of what Tolkien's doing here with all this sort of stuff, is I'm including a little passage from Beowulf, which was Seamus Heaney's translation and actually read by Seamus Heaney. Sort of refers to the heroic tradition, but we'll come to that later on. So, without further ado, this is the departure of Boromir from the beginning of The Two Towers.
For a while the three companions remained silent, gazing after Boromir. Then Aragorn spoke. "They will look for him from the White Tower," he said, "but he will not return from mountain or from sea." Then slowly he began to sing. Through Rohan, over fen and field, where the long grass grows, the west wind comes walking, and about the walls it goes. What news from the west, O wandering wind, you bring to me tonight? Have you seen Boromir the tall, by moon or by starlight? I saw him ride over 7 streams, over waters wide and grey. I saw him walk in empty lands until he passed away into the shadows of the north. I saw him then no more. The north wind may have heard the horn of the son of Boromir. O Boromir, from the high walls westward I looked afar, but you came not from the empty lands where no men are. Then Legolas sang. From the mouths of the sea the south wind flies, from the sandhills and the stones. The wailing of the gulls it bears, and at the gate it moans. What news from the south, O sighing wind, you bring to me at eve? Where now is Boromir the fair? He tarries, and I grieve. Ask not of me where he doth dwell. So many bones there lie on the white shores and the dark shores under the stormy sky. So many have passed down Anduin to find the flowing sea. Ask of the north wind news of them the north wind sends to me. O Boromir, beyond the gate the seaward road runs south, but you came not with the wailing gulls from the grey sea's mouth. Then Aragorn sang again. From the gate of kings the north wind rise, and past the roaring falls, and clear and cold about the tower its loud horn calls. What news from the north, O mighty wind, you bring to me today? What news of Boromir the bold, for he is long away. Beneath Amon Hen I heard his cry, there many foes he fought. His cloven shield, his broken sword they to the water brought. His head so proud, his face so fair, his limbs they laid to rest. And J.R.R, golden J.R.R falls, bore him upon his breast. O Boromir, the tower of God shall ever northward gaze, to J.R.R, golden J.R.R falls till the end of days.
And following this, there are several passages which feature Treebeard, who is one of the Ents. So I'll play those all back to back, and you'll hear from me again in a few minutes' time.
"An Ent," said Mary, "what's that? But what do you call yourself? What's your real name?" "Oh, now," replied Treebeard, "oh, now, that would be telling." "Not so hasty. But I am doing the asking. You're in my country. What are you, I wonder? I cannot place you. You do not seem to come in the old lists that I learned when I was young. But that was long, long time ago, and they may have made new lists. Let me see, how did it go? Learn now the lore of living creatures. First name the 4, the free peoples. Eldest of all, the elf children. Dwarf the delver, dark are his houses. Ent the earthborn, old as mountains. Man the mortal, master of horses. Beaver the builder, buck the leaper, bear bee hunter, boar the fighter, hound is hungry, hare is fearful. Yes, the eagle in eyrie, ox in pasture, hart, horn, crowned, hawk is swiftest, swan the whitest, serpent coldest. How did it go? Rum, tum, rum, tit, tum. It was a long list. But anyway, you do not seem to fit in anywhere. Treebeard fell silent, striding along, and yet making hardly a sound with his great feet. Then he began to hum again, and passed into a murmuring chant. Gradually the hobbits became aware that he was chanting to them. In the willow meads of Tasarinan I walked in the spring. Ah, the sight and the smell of the spring in Nan Tasarion. And I said that was good. I wandered in the summer in the elm woods of Ossiriand. Ah, the light and the music and the summer by the 7 rivers of Ossir. And I thought that was best. To the beaches of Nelderith I came in the autumn. Ah, the gold and the red and the sighing of leaves in the autumn in Tauern and Eldor. It was more than my desire. To the pine trees of the highland of Dorthonion I climbed in the winter. Ah, the wind and the whiteness and the black branches of winter upon Orthuin. My voice went up and sang in the sky. And now all those lands lie under the wave, and I walk in Ambarona, in Tower, in Morna, in Aldalomi, in my own land, in the country of Fangorn, where the roots are long, and the years lie thicker than the leaves in Tower, in Morna, Lomi. There was an elvish song that spoke of this, or at least so I understand it. It used to be sung up and down the great river. It was never an Entish song, mark you. It would have been a very long song in Entish. But we know it by heart, and hum it now and again. This is how it runs in your tongue. The Ent. When spring unfolds the beechen leaf, and sap is in the bough, when light is on the wildwood stream, and wind is on the brow, when stride is long, and breath is deep, and keen the mountain air, come back to me, and say, my land is fair. The Entwife. When spring is come to garth and field, and corn is on the blade, when blossom like a shining snow is on the orchard laid, when shower and sun upon the earth with fragrance fill the air, I linger here and will not come, cause my land is fair. The End. When summer lies upon the world in a noon of gold, beneath the roof of sleeping leaves the dreams of trees unfold, when woodland halls are green and cool and wind is in the west, come back to me, and say my land is best. The Entwife. When summer warms the hanging fruit and burns the berry brown, when straw is gold and ear is white and harvest comes to town, when honey spills and apple swells, though wind be in the west, I'll linger here beneath the sun, because my land is best. The End. When winter comes, the winter wild that hill and wood shall slay, when trees shall fall and starless night devour the sunless day, when wind is in the deadly east, then in the bitter rain I'll look for thee and call to thee, I'll come to thee again. The Entwife. When winter comes and singing ends, when darkness falls at last, when broken is the barren bough and light and labour past, I'll look for thee and wait for thee until we meet again. Together we will take the road beneath the bitter rain. Both. Together we will take the road that leads into the west, and far away we'll find a land where both our hearts may rest. Then orcs came with axes and cut down my tree. I came and called them with their long names, but they did not quiver. I did not hear or answer, they lay dead. O war o farne lassie, Mr. Carney Mirie, O round fair upon your hair, how white the blossom lay. O round mine, I saw you shine upon a summer's day, your rind so bright, your leaves so light, your voice so cool and soft. Upon your head how golden red the crown you bore aloft. O round dead upon your head, your hair is dry and grey, your crown is spilled, your voice is still forever and a day. O war o farne lassie, Mr. Carney Mirie. Then with a crash came a great ringing shout, Ra, home, ra! The trees quivered and bent as if a gust had struck them. There was another pause, and a marching music began like solemn drums, and above the rolling beats and booms the swell voices singing high and strong. Taroon, naroon, 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 tahora, kumba, kumba, noon. The Ents were coming, and ever nearer, louder rose their song. Da hura hara lambanoon, da lamba tara mundaroon, da mundaram, da rundaram, da munda lamba munda tom. Then Brigalow picked up the hobbits and strode from his house. To Isengard, the Ents cried in many voices, to Isengard. To Isengard, though Isengard be ringed and barred with doors of stone, though Isengard be strong and hard and cold as stone and bare as bone, we go, we go, we go to war, to hew the stone and break the door. For bowl and bough are burning now, the furnace roars, we go to war. To land of gloom with tramp of doom, with roll of drum, we come, we come. To Isengard with doom we come, with doom we come, with doom we come.
Something that makes Tolkien's work even more remarkable is the inclusion of poetry and song, and some of them even in different languages. Is this language of Elvish, which he made up while he was a student, and he offers translations of some of these, and this one is a translation, or it runs thus in the common speech, is how it starts. So these are a couple of passages from The King of the Golden Hall, which I think was in Lothlorien. When the Fellowship meet the elves after going through the mines of Moria, I think that's right. Anyway, so here we go. A couple of passages, short passages. The King of the Golden Hall.
Thus it runs in the common speech, said Aragorn, as near as I can make it. Where now the horse and the rider? Where is the horn that was blowing? Where is the helm and the hauberk and the bright hair flowing? Where is the hand and the harp string and the red fire glowing? Where is the spring and the harvest and the tall corn growing? They have passed like rain on the mountain, like a wind in the meadow. The days have gone down in the west behind the hills into shadow. Who shall gather the smoke of the dead wood burning, or behold the flowing years from the sea returning? Ai lauri lantar lassi surine, injar notti narve ramar alron, injar velinte julmar vanier mior mar delissi miru voriva, andunne pella vardo telmar nulluine jassen tintelari eleni, o Mario airitare lirine. Si mani juldan innen quantuva, an siten talle varda oio lossi ove fagna maria telentari ortene, arigli tia rundullave lumbole a sindano riello caita morni e falma linna rimbe mettar hissie, un tuppa calla chiglio miri oiale. Si vannuna, romello vannu a Valimar. Na Marie, na hiru valje Valimar, na elje hiruva, na Marie.
If you're not familiar with The Lord of the Rings, then it's not necessarily a disadvantage at all, because there's plenty in what we're playing this week and last week's show as well that just stands up on its own in its own right. This next section, or these next several sections, all feature Gollum and Frodo and Sam when the latter go off on the last part of the quest to Mordor, and these are more prose passages, I suppose. So you can kind of hopefully you can get something out of it. Even Tolkien's reading style is just worth listening to, even if you don't understand the language necessarily. If English isn't even your first language, I think you can get something from the rhythm and the pace, and that kind of relates to where it all comes from. And we'll pick that up after these next excerpts.
Gollum chuckled to himself, sometimes even croaking in a sort of song. The cold hard lands, they bites our hands, they gnaws our feet. The rocks and stones are like old bones, all bare of meat. But stream and pool is wet and cool, so nice for feet. And now we wish. Aha, what does we wish? He guessed it long ago. Baggins guessed it. Alive without breath, as cold as death, never thirsting, ever drinking, clad in mail, never clinking, drowns on dry land, thinks an island is a mountain, thinks a fountain is a puff of air, so sleek, so fair, what a joy to meet. We only wish to catch a fish so juicy, sweet. "Were there any elephants?" asked Sam, forgetting his fear in his eagerness for news of strange places. "No, no elephants." "What are elephants?" said Gollum. Sam stood up, putting his hands behind his back, as he always did when speaking poetry, and began. "Grey as a mouse, big as a house, nose like a snake, I make the earth shake as I tramp through the grass. Trees crack as I pass. With horns in my mouth I walk in the south, flapping big ears. Beyond count of years I stump round and round, never lie on the ground, not even to die. Oliphant am I, biggest of all, huge, old and tall. If ever you'd met me, you wouldn't forget me. If you never do, you won't think I'm true. But old Oliphant am I, and I never lie." A little way back, above the lake, they found a deep brown bed of last year's fern. Beyond it was a thicket of dark-leaved bay trees, climbing up a steep bank that was crowned with old cedars. Here they decided to rest and pass the day, which already promised to be bright and warm. Sam had been giving earnest thought to food as they marched. Now that the despair of the impassable gate was behind him, he did not feel so inclined as his master to take no thought for their livelihood beyond the end of their errand. And anyway, it seemed wiser to him to save the waybread of the elves for worse times ahead. 6 days or more had passed since he reckoned that they had only a bare supply for 3 weeks. If we reached the fire in that time, we'd be lucky at this rate, he thought. And we might be wanting to get back. We might. Besides, at the end of a long night march, and after bathing and drinking, he felt even more hungry than usual. A supper, or a breakfast, by the fire in the old kitchen at Bagshot Row was what he really wanted. An idea struck him and he turned to Gollum. Gollum had just begun to sneak off on his own, and he was crawling away on all fours through the fern. "Hi, Gollum," said Sam. "Where are you going? Hunting? Well, see here, old noser, you don't like our food, and I'd not be sorry for a change myself. Your new motto's always ready to help. Could you find anything fit for a hungry hobbit?" "Yes, perhaps, yes," said Gollum. "Smeagol always helps, if they asks nicely." "Right," says Sam, "I does ask. And if that isn't nice enough, I begs." Gollum disappeared. He was away some time, and Frodo, after a few mouthfuls of lembas, settled down in the deep brown fern and went to sleep. Gollum returned quietly and peered over Sam's shoulder. Looking at Frodo, he shut his eyes and crawled away without a sound. Sam came to him a moment later and found him chewing something and muttering to himself. On the ground beside him lay 2 small rabbits, which he was beginning to eye greedily. "Smeagol always helps," he said. "He has brought rabbits, nice rabbits, but Master's gone to sleep, and perhaps Sam wants to sleep. Doesn't want rabbits now. Smeagol tries to help, but he can't catch things all in a minute." Sam, however, had no objection to rabbit at all, and said so, at least not to cooked rabbit. All hobbits, of course, can cook, for they begin to learn the art before their letters, which many never reach. But Sam needed a fire and other things besides. He thought for a bit while he took out his knife, cleaned and whetted it, and began to dress the rabbits. He was not going to leave Frodo alone asleep even for a few minutes. "Now, Gollum," he said, "I've another job for you. Go and fill these pans with water and bring them back." "Smeagol will fetch water, yes," said Gollum. "But what does the hobbit want all that water for? He's drunk, he's washed." "Never you mind," said Sam. "If you can't guess, you'll soon find out. And the sooner you fetch the water, the sooner you'll learn. Don't you damage one of my pans, or I'll carve you into mincemeat." While Gollum was away, Sam took another look at Frodo. He was still sleeping quietly, but Sam was now struck most by the leanness of his face and hands. "Too thin and drawn he is," he muttered. "Not right for a hobbit. If I can get these conies cooked, I'm going to wake him up." Sam gathered a pile of the driest fern and then scrambled up the bank, collecting a bundle of twigs and broken wood. A fallen branch of a cedar at the top gave him a good supply. He cut out some turves at the foot of the bank just outside the fern brake and made a shallow hole and laid his fuel in it. Being handy with flint and tinder, he soon had a small blaze going. It made little or no smoke, but gave off an aromatic scent. He was just stooping over his fire, shielding it and building it up with heavier wood, when Gollum returned, carrying the pans carefully and grumbling to himself. He set the pans down, and then suddenly saw what Sam was doing. He gave a thin, hissing shriek and seemed to be both frightened and angry.
"Ah, no!" he cried. "No, silly hobbits. Foolish, yes, foolish. They mustn't do it."
"Mustn't do what?" asked Sam in surprise.
"Not make the nasty red tongues," hissed Gollum. "Fire, fire, it's dangerous, yes it is. It burns, it kills, and it will bring enemies, yes it will."
"I don't think so," said Sam. "Don't see why it should if you don't put wet stuff on it and make a smother. But if it does, it does. I'm going to risk it anyhow. I'm going to stew these conies."
"Stew the rabbits?" squealed Gollum in dismay. "Spoil the beautiful meat Smeagol saved for you, poor hungry Smeagol. What for? What for? Silly hobbit. They're young, they're tender, they're nice. Eat them, eat them."
He clawed at the nearest rabbit, already skinned and lying by the fire. Now, said Sam, each to his own fashion. Our bread chokes you, and raw coney chokes me. If you give me a coney, the coney's mine, see? To cook if I have a mind, and I have. You needn't watch me. Go and catch another and eat it as you fancy, somewhere private and out of my sight. Then you won't see the fire, and I shan't see you, and we'll both be the happier. And I'll see the fire don't smoke, if that's any comfort to you." Gollum withdrew, grumbling, and crawled into the fern. Sam busied himself with his pans. "What a hobbit needs with coney," he said to himself, "is some herbs and roots, especially taters. Not to mention bread. Herbs we can manage, seemingly." "Gollum," he called softly. "Third time pays for all. I want some herbs." Gollum's head peeped out of the fern, but his looks were neither helpful nor friendly. "A few bay leaves, some thyme and sage will do before the water boils," said Sam.
"No," said Gollum. "Smeagol's not pleased, and Smeagol doesn't like smelly leaves. He doesn't eat grasses or roots, no precious. Not till he's starving or very sick, poor Smeagol."
"Smeagol will get into real true hot water when this water boils if he don't do as he's asked," growled Sam. "Sam will put his head in it, just precious. And I'd make him look for turnips and carrots and taters too, if it was the time of the year. I bet there's all sorts of good things running wild in this country. I'd give a lot for half a dozen taters."
"Smeagol won't go. Oh, no, precious, not this time," hissed Gollum. "He's frightened, and he's very tired. And this hobbit's not nice at all. Smeagol won't grub for roots and carrots and taters. What's taters, precious, eh? What's taters?"
"Potatoes," said Sam. "The gaffer's delight, and rare good ballast for an empty belly. But you won't find any, so you needn't look. But be good, Smeagol, and fetch me the herbs, and I'll think better of you. What's more, if you turn over a new leaf and keep it turned, I'll cook you some taters one of these days, I will. Fried fish and chips, served by S. Gamgee. You couldn't say no to that."
Yes, we could. Spoiling nice fish, scorching it. Give me fish now, and keep nasty chips."
"Oh, you're hopeless," said Sam. "Go to sleep."
We've heard some poetry as well as some prose and also some song. For the best definition of poetry and prose I think I've ever heard was delivered by Charlie Chuck at the Edinburgh Festival one year, but I can't go into that now. However, what I want to do is talk a little bit about Tolkien's influences. He was a professor of Anglo-Saxon and Middle English, Old English. He actually ended up being professor in Leeds, University of Leeds, where I was lucky enough to do an English degree myself, although not at the same time as he was still there. But it's not just the material and the sort of the dragons and that sort of thing. Although there are some serious parallels between the dragon in Beowulf and the dragon at the end of The Hobbit as well, and various other details and parts of stories. The Riders of Rohan in Lord of the Rings are probably the strongest, have the strongest parallels to some of the Old English heroic literature, and we're going to hear Tolkien reading some the Muster of Rohan, but especially a passage called the Ride of the Rohirrim, and it's referred to actually on the sleeve notes of the record. We'll come back to that slightly later on. What I wanted to do, though, was just by way of not just the subject matter, although this excerpt does deal with dragons, but some of the language and the way the language is used, the alliteration and the sorts of the ways the things rhyme and the rhythm and the meter. If you can pick up on some of these things, then that'll be possibly an asset to sort of appreciating some of the finer details that Tolkien weaves into his writing, and especially interesting here, which it's obviously what we're dealing with, is the way some of the writing is structured as poetry as well as song, because of course all the old heroic literature wasn't written down until much later. It was passed on orally, so things had to scan and rhyme and have this projected vocal sort of sung quality to it. So I'm just going to depart from Tolkien right now and play you a bit of Seamus Heaney reading his own translation of Beowulf, and this is a part where we're dealing with the dragon, so it sort of overlaps with The Hobbit. I know I'm playing this in the middle of Lord of the Rings, but hopefully you'll hear, maybe pick up on some of the resonances. So here's Seamus Heaney.
Then he drew himself up beside his shield. The fabled warrior in his war shirt and helmet trusted in his own strength entirely and went under the crag. No coward path. Hard by the rock face, that hale veteran, a good man who had gone repeatedly into combat in danger and come through, saw a stone arch and a gushing stream that burst from the barrow, blazing and wafting a deadly heat. It would be hard to survive unscathed near the horde, to hold firm against the dragon in those flaming depths. Then he gave a shout. The Lord of the Geats unburdened his breast and broke out in a storm of anger. Under the grey stone his voice challenged and resounded clearly. Hate was ignited. The horde guard recognized a human voice. The time was over for peace and parleying. Pouring forth in a hot battle fume, the breath of the monster burst from the rock. There was a rumble underground. Down there in the barrow, Beowulf the warrior lifted his shield. The outlandish thing writhed and convulsed and vehemently turned on the king, whose keen-edged sword, an heirloom inherited by ancient right, was already in his hand. Roused to a fury, each antagonist struck terror in the other. Unyielding, the lord of his people loomed by his tall shield, sure of his ground, while the serpent looped and unleashed itself. Swaddled in flames, it came gliding and flexing and racing towards its fate. Yet his shield defended the renowned leader's life and limb for a shorter time than he meant it to. That final day was the first time when Beowulf fought and fate denied him glory in battle. So the king of the Geats raised his hand and struck hard at the enamelled scales, but scarcely cut through. The blade flashed and slashed, yet the blow was far less powerful than the hard-pressed king had need of at that moment. The mound keeper went into a spasm and spouted deadly flames. When he felt the stroke, battle fire billowed and spewed. Beowulf was foiled of a glorious victory. The glittering sword, infallible before that day, failed when he unsheathed it, as it never should have. For the son of Ecgtheow, it was no easy thing to have to give ground like that and go unwillingly to inhabit another home in a place beyond. So every man must yield the leasehold of his days. It wasn't long until the fierce contenders clashed again. The horde guard took heart, inhaled and swelled up and got a new wind. He who had once ruled was furled in fire and had to face the worst. No help or backing was to be had then from his high-born comrades. That hand-picked troop broke ranks and ran for their lives to the safety of the wood. But within one heart sorrow welled up. In a man of worth the claims of kinship cannot be denied. His name was Wiglaf, a son of Weostan's, a well-regarded Shilfing warrior related to Alfheri. When he saw his lord tormented by the heat of his scalding helmet, he remembered the bountiful gifts bestowed on him, how well he lived among the Wegmundings, the freehold he inherited from his father before him. He could not hold back. One hand brandished the yellow timbered shield, the other drew his sword. It was his first time to be tested as a fighter. His spirit did not break, and the ancestral blade would keep its edge, as the dragon discovered as soon as they came together in the combat. Sad at heart, addressing his companions, Wiglaf spoke wise and fluent words.
Back to Tolkien now, and there's a brief passage called the Muster of Rohan, and then after that there's about sort of 8 or 9 minutes of the Ride of the Rohirrim. And on the sleeve notes to the record, which I read out partly last week, but I'll just repeat this this short section here. This is this is George Sayer, who's a friend of Tolkien's, and just got him to record this all the stuff that we were listening to today. So this is, I quote, "I then asked him to record what he thought one of the best pieces of prose in The Lord of the Rings, and he recorded part of The Ride of the Rohirrim. Surely you know that's really good," I asked after playing it back. "Yes," he said, "it's good. This machine has made me believe in it again." So we're just about to hear that section. And actually later on the sleeve notes to this particular one, Sayer goes on, he says, "Another section is even more remarkable. Tolkien here achieves in The Ride of the Rohirrim the rarest thing in modern literature, the truly heroic. It was C.S. Lewis's favourite passage, and one that he often asked me to play when he came to stay. He once remarked of it, that's at least as good as anything in Homer." So we'll get back to the core, the most sort of Anglo-Saxon of the characters and the societies, the situations in Tolkien. This is the Riders of Rohan.
So without horn or harp or music of men's voices, the great ride into the east began, which the songs of Rohan were busy for many long lives of men thereafter. From dark Dun Harrow in the dim morning with Thane and Captain rode Thengel's son. To Edoras he came, the ancient halls of the Mark Wardens mist enshrouded, golden timbers were in gloom mantled. Farewell he bade to his free people, hearth and high seat and the hallowed places, where long he had feasted ere the light faded. Forth rode the king, fear behind him, faith before him, fealty kept he. Oaths he had taken, all fulfilled them. Forth rode Theoden 5 nights and days, east and onward rode the Eorlingas, through fold and fen march and the Fyrian wood, 6,000 spears to Sun landing. Munburg the mighty under Mindolluin, sea king's city in the south kingdom, foe beleaguered, fire encircled. Doom drove them on, darkness took them, horse and horseman, hoof-beats afar, sank into silence, so the songs tell us. Then, since we must look for fell deeds and the need of all our strength, said Eomer, I counsel that we rest now, and set out hence by night, and so time our going if we come upon the fields when tomorrow is as light as it will be, or when our Lord gives the signal. To this the king assented, and the captains departed, but soon Elfhelm returned. The scouts have found naught to report beyond the grey wood, Lord, he said, save 2 men only, 2 dead men and 2 dead horses. Well, said Eomer, what of it? This, Lord. They were errand riders of Gondor. Hiragon was one, maybe. At least his hand still clasped the red arrow, but his head was hewn off. And this also, it was seen by the signs that they were fleeing westward when they fell. As I read it, they found the enemy already on the outwall, or assailing it when they returned, and that would be 2 nights ago, if they used fresh horses from the posts, as is their wont. They could not reach the city, and they turned back. Alas, said Theoden, then Denethor has heard no news of our riding. and he will despair of our coming. Need brooks no delay, yet late is better than never, said Eomer. And mayhap in this time shall the old saw be proved truer than ever before, since men spoke with mouth. It was night. On either side of the road the hosts of Rohan was moving silently. Now the road, passing about the skirts of Mindolluin, turned southward. Far away and almost straight ahead there was a red glow under the black sky, and the sides of the great mountain loomed dark against it. They were drawing near the Rammas of the Pelennor, but the day was not yet come. The king rode in the midst of the leading company, his household men about him. Elfhelm's Eored came next, and now Merry noticed that Dernhelm had left his place and in the darkness was moving steadily forward, until at last he was riding just in rear of the king's guard. There came a check. Merry heard voices in front speaking softly. Outriders had come back who had ventured forward almost to the wall. They came to the king. "There are great fires, lord," said one. "The city is all set about with flame, and the field is full of foes. But all seem drawn off to the assault. As well as we could guess, there are few left upon the outwall, and they are heedless, busy in destruction." "Do you remember the wild man's words, lord?" said another. "I live upon the open wold in days of peace. Weedfara is my name, and to me also the air brings messages. Already the wind is turning. There comes a breath out of the south. There is a sea tang in it, faint though it be. The morning will bring new things. Above the reek it'll be dawn when you pass the wall. If you speak truly, Weedfara, then may you live beyond this day in years of blessedness," said Theoden. He turned to the men of his household who were near, and he spoke now in a clear voice, so that many also of the riders of the first Eored heard him. "Now is the hour come, riders of the mark, sons of Eorl. Foes and fire before you and your homes far behind. Yet though you fight upon an alien field, the glory that you reap there shall be your own forever. Oaths ye have taken, now fulfill them all, to lord, and land, and league of friendship." Men clashed spear upon shield. "Eormer, my son, you lead the first Eored," said Theoden, "and it shall go behind the king's banner in the centre. Elfhelm, lead your company to the right when we pass the wall, and Grimbold shall lead his towards the left. Let the other companies behind follow these three that lead as they have chance. Strike wherever the enemy gathers. Other plans we cannot make, for we know not yet how things stand upon the field. Forth now, and fear no darkness." The leading company rode off as swiftly as they could, for it was still deep dark, whatever change Weedfara might forebode. Merry was riding behind Dernhelm, clutching with the left hand, while with the other he tried to loosen his sword in its sheath. He felt now bitterly the truth of the old king's words. In such a battle, what would you do, Meriadoc? Just this, he thought: encumber a rider, and hope at best to stay in my seat and not be pounded to death by galloping hoofs. It was no more than a league to where the outwalls had stood. They soon reached them, too soon for Merry. Wild cries broke out, and there was some clash of arms, but it was brief. The orcs busy about the walls were few and amazed, and they were quickly slain or driven off. Before the ruin of the north gate in the Rammas, the king halted again. The first Eored drew up behind him and about him on either side. Dernhelm kept close to the king, though Elfhelm's company was away on the right. Grimbold's men turned aside and passed round to a great gap in the wall further eastward. Merry peered from behind Dernhelm's back. Far away, maybe 10 miles or more, there was a great burning. But between it and the riders, lines of fire blazed in a vast crescent, at the nearest point less than a league distant. He could make out little more on the dark plain, and as yet he neither saw any hope of morning, nor felt any wind, changed or unchanged. Now silently the host of Rohan moved forward into the field of Gondor, pouring in slowly but steadily like the rising tide through breaches in a dike that men have thought secure. But the mind and will of the black captain were bent wholly on the falling city, and as yet no tidings came to him warning that his designs held any flaw. After a while the king led his men away somewhat eastward, to come between the fires of the siege and the outer fields. Still they were unchallenged, and still Theoden gave no signal. At last he halted once again. The city was now nearer. A smell of burning was in the air, and a very shadow of death. The horses were uneasy, but the king sat upon Snowmane, motionless, gazing upon the agony of Minas Tirith, as if stricken suddenly by anguish or by dread. He seemed to shrink down, cowed by age. Merry himself felt as if a great weight of horror and doubt had settled on him. His heart beat slowly. Time seemed poised in uncertainty. They were too late. Too late was worse than never. Perhaps Theoden would quail, bow his old head, turn, slink away to hide in the hills. Then suddenly Merry felt it at last, beyond doubt, a change. Wind was in his face, light was glimmering. Far, far away in the south the clouds could be dimly seen as remote grey shapes rolling up, drifting. Morning lay beyond them. But at that same moment there was a flash, as if lightning had sprung from the earth beneath the city. For a searing second it stood dazzling far off in black and white, its topmost tower like a glittering needle. And then as the darkness closed again, there came rolling over the fields a great boom. At that sound the bent shape of the king sprang suddenly erect. Tall and proud he seemed again, and rising in his stirrups he cried in a loud voice, more clear than any there had ever heard a mortal man achieve before, "Arise, arise, riders of Theoden! Fell deeds awake, fire and slaughter! Spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered, sword day, red day ere the sun rises. Ride now, ride to Gondor!" With that he seized a great horn from Guzlaf his banner-bearer, and he blew such a blast upon it that it burst asunder. And straightway all the horns in the host were lifted up in music, and the blowing of the horns of Rohan in that hour was like a storm upon the plain, and a thunder in the mountains. Ride now, ride to Gondor! Suddenly the king cried to Snowmane, and the horse sprang away. Behind him his banner blew in the wind, white horse upon a field of green, but he outpaced it. After him thundered the knights of his house, but he was ever before them. Aylmer rode there, the white horse-tail on his helm floating in his speed, and the front of the first Eorred roared like a breaker foaming to the shore, but Theoden could not be overtaken. Fey he seemed, or the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins. And he was borne up on Snowmane like a god of old, even as Ormy the Great in the battle of the Valar when the world was young. His golden shield was uncovered, and lo, it shone like an image of the sun, and the grass flamed into green above the white feet of his steed. For morning came, morning and a wind from the sea, and darkness was removed, and the hosts of Mordor wailed, and terror overtook them, and they fled and died, and the hoofs of wrath rode over them. And then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing that was fair and terrible came even to the city.
The Ride of the Rohirrim. And bear in mind that this was all recorded before Tolkien had actually even found a publisher for Lord of the Rings. He tried everybody and it just been rejected all the way around. So this is a fairly special moment in the history of this. You know, it's all very well to think of the books now and the blockbuster movies and everything, but this was when it was really a germ of an idea or a realised idea, but with no particular outlet. So we'll move swiftly on to the next section, which is the Battle of the Pelennor Fields.
No few had fallen, renowned or nameless, captain or soldier, for it was a great battle, and the full account of it no tale has told. So long afterward a maker in Rohan said in his song of the mounds of Munburg, "We heard the horns in the hills ringing, the swords shining in the south kingdom. Steeds went striding to the stoning land as wind in the morning. War was kindled. There Theoden fell, Fengling mighty, to his golden halls and green pastures in the northern fields, never returning, high lord of the host. Harding and Guzlaf, Dunher Derwin, a doughty Grimbold, Herifaran, Herubrand, Horn and Fastred fought and fell there in a far country. In the mounds of Munburg and a mould they lie with their league fellows, lords of Gondor. Neither Hirluin the fair to the hills by the sea, nor Forlong the old of the flowering vales ever to Arnach to his own country returned in triumph, nor the tall bowmen Derufin and Duilin to their dark waters, mirrors of Morthon and the mountain shadows. Death in the morning and a day's ending, lords took and lowly. Long now they sleep under grass in Gondor by the great river. Grey now as tears, gleaming silver, red then it rolled, roaring water. Foam dyed with blood flamed at sunset. As beacons mountains burned at evening, red fell the dew in Ram Masechor.
Next up, we've got the Mount Doom reading. This is about 7 or 8 minutes long. And another one of the things I like, I guess I keep saying that, but it's this consistency of hearing the readings from The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings as a whole. So you've got Tolkien's actual voicing of Gollum and the sounds that Gollum makes, and his it's very easy once you've seen the film to have your imagination just frozen in what's represented visually, and using all the special effects and that sort of approach sort of narrows down the imagination somewhat, and it sort of becomes the definitive interpretation, if you like. But actually hearing Tolkien sort of make this transition from The Hobbit to Lord of the Rings, and using the same, obviously he's going to use the same voices for the same characters, but it's a great bridge between the two things. I mean, we don't really hear him do any other voices particularly, but Gollum is the one that he actually gives he actually sort of, it's not an impression, he really vocalizes the character in a way that none of the other characters get vocalized. I guess you get a little bit of that with the Ents and the Treebeard and the Ents, and obviously the Elven language has its own sort of character as well, but it's more of a general thing. I don't think he gives it to specific individuals. But with Gollum, you get all these the vocal tics and the it just gives you a little bit more somehow. It really he's transmitting his imagination, not just textually. It's just really with the voice and the spirit of it. It really comes through much more specifically, I suppose, than the other characters. Anyway, I'm wittering on a bit. I'm aware of that, but it can't be helped. So this is now a section about Mount Doom. So this is Frodo, Sam, and Gollum, and the final journey and destination of the ring, from the title.
There at the bend it was cut deep through a crag of old weathered stone, once long ago vomited from the mountain's furnaces. Panting under his load, Sam turned the bend, and even as he did so, out of the corner of his eye, he had a glimpse of something falling from the crag, like a small piece of black stone that had toppled off as he passed. A sudden weight smote him, and he crashed forward, tearing the backs of his hands that still clasped his master's. Then he knew what had happened. For above him as he lay, he heard a hated voice. "Wicked master," it hissed. "Wicked master! Cheats us! Cheats Smeagol! Oh! He mustn't go that way. He mustn't hurt Precious. Give it to Smeagol, yes. Give it to us. Give it to us." With a violent heave, Sam rose up. At once he drew his sword, but he could do nothing. Gollum and Frodo were locked together. Gollum was tearing at his master, trying to get at the chain and the ring. This was probably the only thing that could have roused the dying embers of Frodo's heart and will. An attack, an attempt to wrest his treasure from him by force. He fought back with a sudden fury that amazed Sam, and Gollum also. Even so, things might have gone far otherwise if Gollum himself had remained unchanged. But whatever dreadful paths, lonely and hungry and waterless, he had trodden, driven by a devouring desire and a terrible fear, they had left grievous marks on him. He was a lean, starved, haggard thing, all bones and tight-drawn, sallow skin. A wild light flamed in his eyes, but his malice was no longer matched by his old griping strength. Frodo flung him off and rose up quivering. "Down! Down!" he gasped, touching to his hand to his breast, so that beneath the cover of his leather shirt he clasped the ring. "Down, you creeping thing, and out of my path! Your time is at an end. You cannot betray me or slay me now." Then suddenly, as before under the eaves of the Emyn Muil, Sam saw these two rivals with other vision. A crouching shape, scarcely more than the shadow of the living thing, a creature now wholly ruined and defeated, yet filled with a hideous lust and rage. And before it stood stern, untouchable now by pity, a figure robed in white, and at its breast it held a wheel of fire. Out of the fire there spoke a commanding voice. "Begone, and trouble me no more. If you touch me ever again, you shall be cast yourself into the fire of doom." The crouching shape backed away, terror in its blinking eyes, and yet at the same time insatiable desire. Then the vision passed, and Sam saw Frodo standing, hand on his breath coming in great gasps, and Gollum at his feet, resting on his knees, with his wide splayed hands upon the ground. "Look out!" cried Sam, "he'll spring!" He stepped forward, brandishing his sword. "Quick, master!" he gasped. Go on, no time to lose. I'll deal with him. Go on!" Frodo looked at him as if at one now far away. "Yes, I must go on," he said. "Farewell, Sam. This is the end at last. On Mount Doom, doom shall fall. Farewell." He turned and went on, walking slowly but erect up the climbing path. "Now," said Sam, "at last I can deal with you." He leapt forward with drawn blade, ready for battle. And Gollum did not spring. He fell flat upon the ground and whimpered. "Don't kill us," he wept. "Don't hurt us with nasty, cruel steel. Let us live, yes, live just a little longer. Lost, we're lost. And when Precious goes, we'll die, yes, die into the dust." He clawed up the ashes with half his long, fleshless fingers. "Dust," he hissed. Sam's hand wavered. His mind was hot with wrath and the memory of evil. It would be just to slay this treacherous, murderous creature, just and many times deserved. Also, it seemed, the only safe thing to do. But deep in his heart there was something that restrained him. He could not strike this thing lying in the dust, forlorn, ruinous, utterly wretched. He himself, though only for a little while, had borne the ring, and now dimly he guessed the agony of Gollum's shriveled mind and body, enslaved to that ring, unable to find peace or relief ever in life again. But Sam had no words to express what he felt. "Oh, curse you, you stinking thing," he said. "Go away, be off. I don't trust you, not as far as I could kick you, but be off, or I shall hurt you, yes, with nasty, cruel steel." Gollum got up on all fours and backed away for several paces. Then he turned, and as Sam aimed to kick at him, he fled away down the path. Sam gave no more heed to him. He suddenly remembered his master. He looked up the path and could not see him. As fast as he could, he trudged up the road. If he had looked back, he might have seen, not far below, Gollum turn again, and then, with the wild light of madness glaring in his eyes, come, swiftly but warily, creeping on behind, a slinking shadow among the stones. The path climbed on. Soon it bent again, and with a last eastward course, passed in a cutting along the face of the cone, and came to the dark door in the mountainside, the door of the Sammath Naur. Far away now, rising towards the south, the sun, piercing the smokes and haze, burned ominous, a dull bleared disk of red. And all Mordor lay about the mountain like a dead land, silent, shadow-folded, waiting for some dreadful stroke. Sam came to the gaping mouth and peered in. It was dark and hot. A deep rumbling shook the air. "Frodo! Master!" he called. There was no answer. For a moment he stood, his heart beating with wild fears, and then he plunged in. A shadow followed him. At first he could see nothing. In his great need he drew out once more the phial of Galadriel, but it was pale and cold in his trembling hand, and threw no light into that stifling dark. He was come to the heart of the realm of Sauron, and the forces of his ancient might, greatest in Middle-earth. All other powers were here subdued.
I wonder what went on with the recording there, because this is it's all off the same record, and the record's not damaged at all. You can hear a really different sound quality. I wonder whether that might have been the first bit that they recorded, or the last bit, or that it was on a different sort of different reel of tape, something like that. But for the sort of audio forensic bod in me, I think there's some sort of other story behind that. But you can still hear it's Tolkien. You can still hear the words. It doesn't really affect it so much. It doesn't need to be high fidelity, whatever that means. The fidelity is really the honesty to what actually happened, and maybe there's more fidelity in that recording than the others, or just as much. Let's not open that can of worms right now. The next section, the penultimate, actually this is the last section from Tolkien's reading of the Lord of the Rings, or the Return of the King rather. There's one more to go, but that's from a slightly different part of the story. So this is The Steward and the King.
And before the sun had fallen far from the moon, out of the east there came a great eagle flying, and he bore tidings beyond hope from the lords of the west, crying, "Sing now, ye people of the Tower of Anor, for the realm of Sauron is ended forever, and the dark tower is thrown down. Sing and rejoice, ye people of the Tower of God, for your watch hath not been in vain, and the black gate is broken, and your king hath passed through, and he is victorious. Sing and be glad, all ye children of the west, for your king shall come again, and he shall dwell among you all the days of your life. And the tree that was withered shall be renewed, and he shall plant it in the high places, and the city shall be blessed. Sing, all ye people." And the people sang in all the ways of the city.
To round off this programme and this reading by Tolkien from various sections of The Lord of the Rings, just going to quote the sleeve notes here. This is by a fellow called Ward Botsford. I'm not sure whether he's the ultimate producer of the record or what. Doesn't actually say. However, he says as follows in the sleeve. "A slight liberty has been taken with the great Elvish poem which begins I Laurier Lantar Lassie Surinen and is recorded on side B, band 6. Tolkien recorded this also in a spoken version which appears on the other record which I played last week. It appears here in Tolkien's own plain chant. It seems to me to sum up the whole of the ring so beautifully that I trust it will not offend in its present placement." It does sound like a producer's note, but well, why not? Why not indeed? So I'm going to play that, and then I'll come back to you.
Andune bella vardo telluma, nuloinia sentintilarielne, o Mario aritori lirinan. Si mani jordanen en quantuva, antitin tali vardo o losseo, le fagna mare delentari orteneari gli artierundullave l'ombulle. Asindar noriallo caita mornie, ival mallenarim bemet, argisiem tu pocala ciglio mirioiale, si vannuana Roma lo vannua valimar, na Marie, na Iruvalia valimar, na Elie Hiruva, na Morie.
So that completes the readings by J.R.R. Tolkien of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So we've had 2 programmes on that. I've got a feeling that somewhere I might actually have the other record in this series, which I think is Tolkien performing poems and songs of Middle-earth. So I'll see if I can dig that out. I'm sure I've seen it somewhere. So maybe we'll come back for a third part, a trilogy, which would mirror the Lord of the Rings trilogy maybe rather nicely. So, well, we'll give it a break. I'm not sure what's happening next week or the week after, but at some point we will. I'm going to go and do an interview with an old friend of mine called Lee Harris, who's quite an interesting individual. He's been around in London and involved with all sorts of psychedelic things since the mid-60s, and he saw the Pink Floyd and the UFO Club and this kind of thing. He's run a head shop on Portobello Road for 35 years or so, and he's been recently doing sort of I don't know how you would describe it, all kinds of electric poetry and performance poetry, beat stuff. He organised the Alchemical Wedding in 1968 in the Royal Albert Hall, various things. So we're going to try and have an interview with Lee. Look him up online. Lee Harris, Alchemy is the name of the shop. You'll find links there. And if you've got any questions for Lee, please email me, voiceonrecord@gmail.com. If we get them in time, then I can pass them on and see if we can incorporate them into the show. Any other queries, questions, or comments, then you can use that email address. Don't forget, the show gets repeated on Sunday nights from 11 till 12, and you can always download the online version. So you've been listening to Voice on Record on Resonance 104.4 FM, resonancefm.com with Sean Williams. So for this week, goodbye.